So I did my initial impressions and unboxing on the second channel, so if you missed that, feel free to check that out. I'll have a link down below in the description, but I really wanted to take one of these apart, so I also managed to pick up the turquoise switch. Go ahead and take all of this apart, see what we have in here, and have some fun. So make either turquoise or yellow. I would have gone with turquoise, so here we are, but it's coming apart anyway. So let's go ahead and take this guy out here. I already went over some of the stuff that it comes with and some of the controls and the different things to point out on the outside, so again, check that video if you missed it. But we're actually going to flip over. I'm going to leave this piece of plastic here just so I can kind of work on top of it. But it looks like kind of going around here, we just have Phillips head screws, so they didn't... Oh, wait, actually, no, they went to... These are tri-wing still. I was hoping they would have gone to Phillips head, but we have tri-wing screws, drivers here, so no big deal there. It's just more annoying than anything else. So we're just going to go ahead and unscrew this, and the back plate should just come off. Now we have the 4 tri-wings on the back, and then we have 2 Phillips head screws on the bottom here, and then I assume, yep, we have also 2 more Phillips head screws here. I do feel like the plastic on this is maybe a little thicker. It definitely feels more solid. That was something I pointed out in my impressions and unboxing video. Is just overall it just feels like a very solid system even compared to the current Switch that we know. So after getting all the screws out, and I'll undo these just to make sure, I assume this back should pop off. It's probably clipped though, mostly around, because I can see like a seam here going around for the back plate, so just popping it off should get it free. So it is indeed clipped on around the outside. It does go over it, so if you kind of look at it, it goes around, right? And the way, I guess would be the best way anyway to get this off would be through the bottom where we have, of course, the speakers. There's a nice gap where you can kind of just pop it off with a spudger or your fingernails or something. And then we have the back bumpers here, ZL, ZR, of course, and they just kind of sit in here. They have their own spot here to sit in, and they actually click in. So they did kind of come off when I popped the back off, but otherwise they would sit in there. Oh, I also want to point out something interesting here. You know, on the back we have our kind of our mesh where the intake is supposed to be, basically 2 holes so that air can go in to where the fan is, and it even has a divot here on the metal plate. What's interesting about this is it seems like it's really only set up correctly for this one here. So if you're looking at the back, it'd be the left one, whereas the right one is actually blocked here. You can kind of see the tape, for example, right here. That actually is on a raised part of the back plate going to this guy. So I'm sure this still helps, but it's definitely set up more in line with this side here, as that's where the bottom of the divot rests. So interesting that they're not using, I guess, technically both of these, but it's probably all set up kind of like a to be more closed, so that it does appear to be using basically what we figured it would, which would be the same. It's using the same chip, same RAM and everything, and that again explains the power differences in battery. Even though the battery is smaller, you can actually see it here, a 3,570 milliamp hour battery, which we already knew about. It does get better battery life, as we would expect, so no surprises, to me anyway, when it comes to the chipset, the RAM and everything. It's all designed so that it runs cooler, more efficient and everything, and that's how it gets a better battery life out of a smaller battery. Now we also have our chip right here leading up from the charge port. It's very difficult to read in person, but I think I got a good picture of it with the camera, so I'll actually come back to this one and see what we have there, see if it's similar to what's in the current Switch. And then over here we also have our flash memory. That's what was hiding underneath of the other piece here. It's not modular, it's soldered down, kind of expected, I think, since why would they make it modular at this point? And they're trying to save space and money and all of that. Don't make it a separate board, just solder it straight to the motherboard itself. So overall, same, just solder to the board. We have our SD card reader here. We have our speakers, and what's interesting about these speakers, something I noticed, it might be a little thing, but it's actually a speaker that's been encased. I assume the reason it's encased, and I'll show you what I mean after removing these 2 screws, I assume the reason it's encased is because they wanted to direct the sound specifically out of the bottom of it, and it's basically the same speaker that we've been dealing with. They just encased it in plastic right here, and then it's angled down, and then it has basically this little tunnel that then travels, and then I assume just puts the sound out down here. That could also be to protect the speaker, since water damage always seems to affect the speaker, but all I can assume is that it's designed so that, there we go, it's designed so that sound will travel in a specific direction, and they have then outputted it out the bottom. Again, that's all I can assume there, but interesting that this large gray piece on the sides were speakers. The game card reader and headphone jack would be next, held in with quite a few screws, maybe more than it really needed. I believe there were 7 screws just holding this piece itself down. Now, of course, that'll make it so that the headphone jack is more sturdy, the game card slot is more sturdy. Keep in mind, though, if you break either of these, which headphone jacks tend to break more than anything else, whether something gets broken off in there, it's loose so you don't get sound in both earpieces and everything. Something that just gets changed out right away. So something I'm noticing here as I go along, there are a lot of screws in this thing. They have packed quite a bit when it comes to... This is a good system probably to play it on. Again, I'll test it myself, but just looking at it mechanically, I think Nintendo made a good D-pad here if you're just doing regular button presses that don't include heavy rolls, like Mortal Kombat, I guess, would be right. But for Tetris 99, this might be the D-pad. So I went ahead and removed the analog stick on the Switch Lite, and it looks very much so like the regular analog stick that's in your Switch now, which is probably going to annoy some people. It reminds me very much of that one I ordered from to drift down the road or even the next month or two, but for now all I can tell you is it appears to be the same design and everything. Even inside it looks very, very similar with the pads and everything. So hey, maybe Nintendo made some small difference with the materials they're using here, but from what I can tell it looks the same right now. Alright, and there we have our board completely unscrewed and removed. Yes, it is a small board. This is like everything here minus the basically what appears to be the inside of a Joy-Con almost put on the right side. And hey, you know what? What's interesting about this is, I guess, how we can imagine that they would design a D-pad Joy-Con right here. And I think it would actually be pretty good. So hey, Nintendo, you know, maybe our ABXY buttons and they are not clicky or anything anymore. So let's actually take a look towards the screen, since that's going to be the big question that a lot of people have. Is the screen any different? Is it using a different company or anything? That's something we can actually find out. Also, I want to point out one other thing. The antenna placement appears to be one up top here and one down here. Now, I don't know if that means that the reception is going to be better, but it is in a different spot. See, the regular Switch actually took the antenna around to the front, and it was basically underneath of where your bezel is. That's where they tried to put it. And we had, of course, our reception issues and everything. This is in a different spot. One up top, one down here. Basically out of the way of your hands or anything. As you're going to hold it, you'll probably be holding kind of around the sides. That could end up having better reception. So that's something else to keep an eye on there. So here's something very interesting that just found out. Now, generally with the Switch, the regular one, you have to heat the front and start pulling stuff off to get to the screen. This appears to be different. You actually can remove the backing and get to the screen, at least it appears there to the side there. Yeah, that is actually kind of neat. I like that. That's good. Also, this is fairly sturdy, which is, I assume, the main brace going through the whole middle to keep it from being able to be like bent up and everything. This is pretty strong. So good news there. You can actually hear it fall right there. And looking at the screen, here we go. It is an Innolux screen. So that was the same company that's actually designing the screen. Remember, we took the new Switch screen apart and found that. So it does appear to be the same company designing there as well. And we actually have a ribbon cable here that I assume is the backlight. That's coming off this side here. We have our main screen cable here, and then underneath of that is our digitizer. So it does appear that they have actually seized the digitizer on the other side to it. I'm actually not going to rip that off right now, but we at least see what screen is in here. Rev B, Innolux here, and I have the model number that I can take a picture of as well. So it looks like it's still the same screen. They're not using the newer, more expensive screen that we heard rumors of. Nothing like that exists in the Lite or the Switch revision. We'll have to wait possibly for maybe another Switch. We of course know, I know the Switch Pro rumors and everything. It's always possible there. I figured at $200, I didn't see any way possible they could get that kind of screen in here. So they are still using, I guess you'd say, a cheaper screen, more cost-effective for Nintendo than the one from Sharp. But hey, not bad there. The screen's very small, very flexible as well, as you can actually bend it to a degree. So kind of neat there. And let's finish up with the last question, which is, can the Switch Lite technically, with its hardware, and possibly a modified firmware output video like the regular Switch does, right? And a modified dock, of course. Well, the answer to that, from what I can tell, is no. Mostly because it appears that the hardware that is needed does not exist on the board, which is a semiconductor that's actually required